Now let's talk about setting up your emulation infrastructure. So you need to make some decisions and set up your core infrastructure so you can build an unlimited number of projects. Well, let's hold on a second. Let's back up a second. I already mentioned in a previous lesson about should you build one versus many. So that decision is going to have to come down to you, whether you pursue just one project or whether you pursue many projects. Typically, if you're going to pursue many projects at the same time, you're going to need some help. So you may want to, have quite a few outsourcers that you work with, or even a full-time person to run different things. But overall, the steps are the same to go after different projects. But it's going to take a bit of work to do many of them. Otherwise, I don't want you to fall in the trap. I mean, trust me, this is all from over 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur. It's easy to fall into a trap of trying to do many things at once and just delaying more and more the time that it takes to start making money. Because as you add more and more projects, you extend the timeline. So the only way that's not the case is if you have a very strict, very productive schedule to carry out steps and to carry out basically, being productive, being efficient, and also having help. But aside from that, once you set up your infrastructure, in other words, your tools and services that run everything, we're going to talk about those, and I'm going to give you some recommendations based on my own experience. You may have some of your own experiences and your own preferences for what you'd like to use, but I'm going to give you mine because I know a bunch of people would like to hear my recommendations, would like to hear what I use for this process for myself. So I'm going to share those with you, and then ultimately it's your final decision. But once you set up your basic infrastructure and you don't really have to make those decisions anymore, then it's just plug and play to go after however many projects you want, whether it's one or more. So based on your budget, that's going to determine for sure, what kind of services you're able to use and pay for and afford, as well as how many projects you can go after at a time. So no matter what your budget, there are ways to kind of strip down and do this process with like a basic web hosting account and one or two other tools where you don't have to have all these things I'm about to mention. But the more you can afford, really it gives you an unfair advantage because the faster, more efficient that you can become. So once you set up your emulation infrastructure, you will improve your speed to market and have shared costs across all your projects. So back to our core principles we talked about at the beginning, how fast we can get to market and get money to start coming in, and how inexpensively we can do it. These are very important considerations for us. Well, having the emulation infrastructure, these tools and services that we need to make decisions on what we're going to use, and you want to use the same stuff. You don't want to constantly be trying different things for different projects. That's why you just need to make a decision and stick with it and roll stuff out and then expand and grow and hopefully make more and more money. Now, you can always change services and tools and do different things down the road, but that's not our mindset here. Our mindset is speed to market and for us to start getting results and hopefully money as quick as we can. So once you have the infrastructure set up, in our last section of phase 3, we were talking about, cost analysis, and we were also talking about the speed analysis. And I mentioned in those lessons that the infrastructure can really save you time and money because once you make the decisions, you don't have to make the decisions anymore. And once you're already paying for the services, you can almost run an unlimited number of projects on them without incremental cost. So that can bring the cost down when you average out all your projects. So this sentence is in yellow for a reason. It's very, very important. This is one of the most valuable things I can possibly teach you. And I think if you really get this and you really understand it and use it and, just take advantage of it, you can make a lot of money as an entrepreneur. In fact, I think this one sentence for me personally, and I'm of course biased, but I think this one sentence for me personally is worth 10 times the value of what you invested to be in this class. Here's the sentence and the statement. The biggest bottleneck to making money is having to make decisions. Now, what does that mean? Let me repeat it. The biggest bottleneck to making money is having to make decisions. So that's kind of a tongue twister there. I kind of stumbled on it. The biggest bottleneck to making money is having to make decisions. So you as an entrepreneur, you're going to go out there and set up a business, set up pages, do things, drive traffic, work on your conversion, get money coming in, work to improve the conversion, work to get more traffic and more customers, and slowly but surely make more and more money and hopefully build a business that makes a lot of money. But in the process of any of that, of rolling out any of these steps I give you, of doing anything in any of this, where you have to make a decision, every time you have to make a decision, that is a bottleneck or something that can stop you from progressing and making more money. Decisions and decision making are the kiss of death for entrepreneurs. We as human beings don't like to make decisions. We'll defer making decisions, we'll procrastinate making decisions, and sometimes decisions are just hard to make. So if you take any process, I'm not just talking about the spy for profit methodology, I'm talking about anything in business. If you take any process and you make as many decisions in advance as possible, in other words, you decide what all the tools that are going to be that you're just going to use to run your business, and that's it. You're going to do your best just using those tools. You decide, let's say, let me give you another example and why I'm getting to all this and why it's so important. Let's say you're going to do info products. Let's say you like, and it's a great market online. I have personally generated millions upon millions of dollars selling info products to a lot of different markets in a lot of different ways on the internet. I think info products are fantastic. I mean, this course is essentially an info product. Well, if you define how you're going to structure your info products, let's say you do it in modules, and depending on the depth of a course you're going to teach, let's say we could look at this course. Each module will be broken down into 2 sections so your students can kind of consume the information easier than having it all dumped on them at once. So, okay, you're going to have 2 sections. And then you could say, okay, in each section I'll have 10 to 12 lessons. And then in each lesson I'll have it broken down to 2 or 3 subpoints or subsections. And so the point is, if you make all those decisions in advance, it makes, for example, in this info product example, it makes making that product much faster, much easier, because you're already defining the kind of format that it'll be in. Now it's just filling in the blanks. Well, what are the different sections going to be for, this phase or for that phase or for this module or whatever you want to call it? So making decisions in advance and being able to make decisions is the most powerful thing you can do for making money, because then it's not going to slow you down, nor does it completely stop your progress. That's the other thing about it. Anytime you have to make a decision in the process of you making money, if you haven't made the decision yet, it stops you in your tracks dead. You're completely stopped from moving forward in the process to make money. So I know I kind of rambled on there a bit about that point, but I can't stress enough how important that statement is, that the biggest bottleneck to making money is having to make decisions. So the more decisions you can make in advance, the better. If you're going to do the info product thing, then you'll decide that, okay, so my sales copy, I'll have the name of the product, then I'll have a table of contents that's in 10 to 12 sections, and for each section I'll have 5 bullets that I'm going to put in the sales video or on a sales page. And so you could do 10 different info products, but every sales page has the same structure. Those bullet points, those number of main sections in an outline. Again, you can emulate this by seeing a competitor structure, but you make a decision that that's the structure I'm going to use for all these different types of info products, and then you just wash, rinse, repeat. Like if you were going to do stuff on that Udemy site, let's say, and you wanted to publish on Udemy, you could do that. You could just set the structure up between all the different, number of chapters, the number of sections, so on and so forth. So if you're going to do SaaS products, you could do the same thing. You could say, okay, I'm going to have X number of sections to the code that I want developed or how it's going to work. Or I'm going to have, these main screen sections. And in each screen section, I'm going to draw 2 pictures for the project I'm going to post to find someone to program this. And I'm going to show what they see when they first log in, and then I'm going to show another screen for what it looks like when they fully use it, whatever. I'm just giving you examples, but decisions. The more you can make those decisions in advance, then all you're doing is following steps, predefined steps. And when you're following predefined steps, you can have other people do those steps. Here's the other thing, and then I'll move on past this. Getting help from others to grow your business. It's one of let me sidestep again. The biggest and most valuable way to make money on earth, and how all the wealth has been built in the history of time and still today, is the process of writing a small check and cashing a larger check. That's really what business comes down to. Well, one of the biggest points of leverage in business of writing the small check and getting a larger check is to leverage labor, is to, no matter how great of an opportunity that you discover, how great of an idea you want to build out, how promising a business you want to do, your time is limited to what you can do in a day. So if you're really going to grow and become successful, you need to leverage other people. Outsource to programmers, graphic designers, content creators, copywriters, what have you. Well, what you have to know about working with other people is, and this is why many entrepreneurs stumble, is that other people aren't mind readers. For example, if you're gonna do a SaaS project or a mobile app, which I know a lot of the students in this class are because they've told me that that's where their interest lies. The biggest mistake you can make when you start posting projects to get programmers to bid on your software project, and of course to get them to make it, is to not define it enough. I briefly covered that when we talked a little bit of outsourcing and programming. So making those decisions in advance of really what every single thing is going to do is going to help them do it faster and cheaper for you. Well, that goes with anything. So anytime you get help on anything, if you can make decisions in advance and be more precise about exactly what you want from someone, the more likely they are to be able to do the job and to be able to get it done faster. And speed is everything in business. You got to move quick. So let's move on. But I just really want you to get that is decisions. And if you look back at the history of yourself as an entrepreneur, I would be willing to bet that you haven't made anywhere near as much money as you should have because you had trouble making decisions. It's profound when you really, really think about how it affects a business. So here's some recommended services that I recommend for kind of using for your infrastructure for all this. So you're going to need a shopping cart if you're going to sell products. Infusionsoft has kind of become the go-to tool for kind of online business for entrepreneurs, but it's a power tool. It is very complicated and very, very advanced. It can do some amazing automated things, but it's also a little pricey. It's $200 to $300 a month. It has, I think, about a $2,000 setup fee. Yes, it's very, very expensive, but if you can afford it, or you start on a smaller budget and can build up a project making good money where you can then afford it, it's good to look into because it can do a lot of things that a lot of other tools cannot do. So a lot of the biggest guys and marketers you've probably heard of or have seen their stuff online. And as you poke around and kind of do research and spy on some of these other businesses, you'll see quite a few are using Infusionsoft. That's because it's so powerful. A level above Infusionsoft is Salesforce. Salesforce is really high-end enterprise types of tools to do shopping cart services, customer relationship management, or what they call CRM, as far as kind of, and also managing any part of a business. That's really a whole nother level. But that's like 10 million a year plus types of businesses use Salesforce. Infusionsoft is really for kind of the up to the $1 million a year to even maybe $5, $7, $10 million a year business. Then you may outgrow that and need like a Salesforce. But I mean, you can make tons of money with Infusionsoft. But another great tool that I really like is One Automation Whiz. Now, this is a private label of One Shopping Cart, which you've probably heard of. But the great thing about One Automation Whiz is the guy that owns it and runs it. His name is Don Schnorr. Super awesome guy, super nice. He gets internet marketing. He gets people like us that are building things for the internet. And his support is second to none. If you have a problem with anything, he's there to help you. If you set up your own affiliate program, which, by the way, you can run affiliate programs through Infusionsoft or One Automation Whiz. It'll do that. It'll handle email marketing. It'll basically do pretty much most of everything related to selling products. And by the way, One Shopping Cart or as a private label, One Automation Whiz, it gives Infusionsoft a run for its money. Infusionsoft has a little bit more flexibility, and it's a little more extensive as far as what you can do with automation right now. But One Shopping Cart, and of course, as a result, One Automation Whiz is catching up. But One Automation Whiz is much, much cheaper. I think it's like $129 a month, around that area. And there's no huge setup fee like Infusionsoft, so it is cheaper, and it can still do most of what Infusionsoft can do. I use it for some of my businesses, so I'm using One Automation Whiz. We also use Infusionsoft for some other projects that we're doing. So it just depends on what you're doing, what your budget is. But those are two of the main shopping carts. There are others. There are tons of other solutions. There are new solutions coming out of the market all the time. But I recommend you pick one of these two and just run with it. And of course, when you're making tons of money, then you can decide if you want to go for more features, try something else, so on and so forth. Merchant processor. This is like who you're going to actually use to collect money. I highly recommend a company called Stripe. Stripe is really taking over the internet with digital marketing businesses for payment collection. In other words, to take like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, Diners Club, so on and so forth, in order to take credit cards as payment. I think right now the money gets deposited within 2 to 3 business days. So if you sell something today, you'll have the money in your account within 2 to 3 days from now. And what makes Stripe very, very powerful and why they're really taking over, and they've been very, very smart and strategic in building this business, they really built their service as a platform where, because the development community, developers, programmers love it because they have a set of APIs. No matter what you're building or what shopping, like all these other shopping cart tools and things plug into it, Stripe very easily. But you can do all kinds of other custom things with Stripe, and it makes it super, super easy. Stripe stores the credit cards, so Stripe can do very powerful things like one-click ordering. And I don't mean just one-click upsells, if you know what that is, where someone buys the initial product, they're still in the order process, and it says, hey, would you like to add, this other thing as an upsell? And then you go, okay, I would, and you click to add it. I'm talking about you could actually set up things, if it's done a certain way with Stripe, where you could send your customers to a completely different section or area of your business many days after the initial order, and they could one-click order without entering in their payment information again. What's that worth? It's incredibly valuable, and we're going to start to see some very, very cool stuff being done with methods like that for internet marketing. As people learn tricks and test and try things that will get higher conversions, that will make us more money, that will get us more sales. And so that's one of the reasons Stripe is very powerful. Stripe is also growing fast and backed by a lot of venture capital money. They have a lot of different companies working with them and wanting to work with them. And they're doing some very neat things. One of the powerful things that they're doing, which other merchant accounts are not, they're not necessarily exclusive in this area, but I know they're leading in this area from what I've read and researched. So they are now working directly with credit card databases. So check this out. So they're working to automatically update credit card information for a customer when the credit card expiration date changes, when the credit card number itself changes. Now, why is that critical? Let's say you do a membership site, a SaaS tool, some type of continuity program where you're going to be rebilling customers. Well, one of the things in the past about doing a continuity business is every year there's major turnover where you can't rebill customers because credit cards they get reissued every few years with a new expiration date. So if you didn't have the old expiration date, you had to tell the customer, hey, your payment was declined, we couldn't rebill you, your expiration date may have changed, come back into our system, change the expiration date. If your card changed, put in the new number. And anytime you have a point of friction like that, you make less money because X number of customers are never going to come to your system and put in the new information. They're lazy. They then decide, oh, I don't want to keep getting rebilled, so on and so forth. But Stripe is working very, very hard to automatically work with the banks to update their records, their credit card vault, so to speak. They store all the stuff on their servers, which is very critical in how they do that and comply with regulations to do it, but they do it. And so they're working to update this thing. So if you have a continuity program and you have customers that are connected to Stripe and that's managing the rebilling, because they do rebills, it can automatically help you collect money from people that have credit cards that change, but it doesn't affect you because the credit card vault that Stripe keeps for that customer record for you, it's automatically on the back end getting updated. Super powerful. So Here's the thing to know about Stripe. If you go to their site and you check them out, their overall transaction rate is a little higher than a traditional merchant account that you'd get with like, your own bank or with a normal merchant processor that does stuff, for internet processing. Normal merchant banks charge about 2.3% per transaction, or as much as, 2.4, 2.5. Stripe, as you'll see, their rate is 2.9, so almost 3%. So it's 2.9, so it's about half of 1% higher. And of course, if you're doing a lot of volume, a lot of sales, that half a percent can add up to a lot of money. But here's the difference with Stripe. One, all those things I talked about, their automated rebilling tools, the fact that they're working to automatically update transactions, the one-click buying, in the end, that half a percent isn't going to matter. I believe using Stripe, like here's the thing. I know I'm rambling a lot about Stripe, but it's important. Stripe is really, they're disrupting the whole merchant processor game. It used to be controlled by big banks like Citibank Processing and Chase and all these different underwriters, and they're screwing that whole market up. They're just shaking it up because they are creating so many things that make using them more likely to make more money for their merchants, go figure, than these old greedy banks have been that haven't really, they've been like dinosaurs. They haven't evolved. So that half of a percent more that they charge, at first glance, it's like, oh, well, they are more expensive. Now, I do believe all these added benefits they're adding, one-click buying, all these cool things, will more than make up for that. But here's what's neat to note. They charge 2.9% flat rate for, and it's like plus 30 cents a transaction, very much competitive like all these other processors. But they're also charging that 2.9% on American Express transactions. And why this is important is because the typical American Express transaction is higher with merchant processors than Visa, MasterCard. So normally these other processing companies charge 2.29 or 2.4% to do Visa or MasterCard, but they usually charge 3.5% or more for each American Express customer that you'd have, because American Express does charge the banks more. But Stripe does 2.9% for everything. So while they are a little higher for Visa, MasterCard, they're actually taking a loss, I think, and they're lower on American Express transactions. So when you dollar cost average out, I think all the transaction volume of your customers that'll use American Express, plus the ones that use Visa, that 2.9 and the 2.3% of other companies, that gap really starts to narrow, much, much smaller than the half percent. And if you do more volume with Stripe, they'll lower the 2.9% rate even further. It says so on their site. If you do more than $80,000 a month in volume, contact them and they'll give you a better rate. I know someone now that has a pretty new account that recently started doing about 80,000, and they got a rate of 2.7%. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what you can expect. If you can start doing more than 80,000 a month in sales through them, you can drop to 2.7. And I've talked with other people and know personally, of course, from my business connections and everything I'm doing, that they'll go even lower than that with even more volume. So, I can't give specifics about this stuff because a lot of things they do, they require that you kind of don't disclose it for competitive reasons. But anyways, you can lower that gap even more with even more volume that you do. So it's even more and more valuable. So I highly recommend Stripe. If you don't have a merchant account, go and get it. Now, they're only working with about 18 different countries at the time of me recording this. And many of those countries are still in beta. So your country, depending where you're from, may not be offered just yet. I know the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, all those countries definitely are there. I think other parts of Europe are starting to be added, and I think they're in beta, and then other parts of the world are being added. But check out their site. They tell you everything that they, all the different countries they service right now. So moving on. Help desk management. If you're going to do customer support, I highly recommend you have a help desk management service. My company likes to use Zendesk. It's a great company. They're a publicly traded company. They have a great service, great user interface, easy to use. Yeah, it's about $40 a month or so to start. And if you have more customer support reps, the rate goes up. I think for 5 reps, it's like $100 and something a month. But you can have 5 people logging in, answering support tickets. But it's great. It's a SaaS tool, so you don't have to worry about running help desk software on your own server if your own server should crash. Not only people don't have a place to enter a support ticket to say, hey, your site's down and maybe your membership site's down. So it runs on their servers, runs off their own email marketing systems, so the emails will get delivered. And so it's a great tool to use for managing customer support. So which you can completely outsource to outsourcers, cheap people in the Philippines or in other countries. They can log into your Zendesk account, of course, and just answer any email support tickets for your business. So Zendesk is a good one. Landing pages. To create opt-in pages, to create funnel pages to actually sell stuff. Lead pages is kind of the leader in the digital marketing space. If you check them out, they have a great library of tools. And a new up-and-coming company, a great tool, great service built by Russell Brunson, Todd Dickerson, and his whole team. It's called ClickFunnels. You may have heard of it. You've probably seen it being marketed around the internet. It's a very, very powerful tool. But both of these services can really speed up your, going from nothing to getting a page out there that's ready to start either collecting opt-ins to build an email list and or to start actually selling products. So and they have templates with proven converting pages, and it's those are very, very solid tools. So some people use them both, some people use one or the other, but both of those services are great and will save you a lot of time for setting up pages and basically start testing stuff. Site hosting, there are a gazillion website hosting things out there. Bluehost is one of the cheapest. It's kind of one of the most common ones. So I list this pretty much just for people that don't have much experience at all with web hosting. There are a lot of different providers out there. It doesn't really matter ultimately. Most hosting companies, have the basic stuff where they'll host pages and host email addresses for you and other things on your domain. And really, marketing today is using so many of these other tools like the ClickFunnels, like lead pages, these shopping carts. You're not really doing a lot on your own kind of website hosted account anymore because that plugs into a lot of these other tools that automate and make things easier. So, you don't need to run your own managed server anymore for your website unless you're doing very, very specific things. So any web host pretty much will get the job done. Domain registration, I didn't list that. GoDaddy, most people use GoDaddy. Enom is another one, ENOM. Bulk Register is another one. I think they're owned by Enom now. Network Solutions is, of course, the oldest one, but they're more expensive. There are a lot of different domain registrars out there. If you don't really know what one to use, just go with GoDaddy. They're cheap, they're reliable, they're secure. But make that decision. Say, I'm going to use GoDaddy, and I'm only going to use GoDaddy for every domain I register. You don't want to use too many different, like for all these things I'm mentioning, you don't want to use too many different tools to do the same job. Because then you're like, oh, here again, decision making. I want to register a domain. Should I go in my GoDaddy account? Should I go in my Enom account? Should I, So make those decisions in advance and just stick to a single tool for different things if you can, and then move forward with that. If you're going to do info products, I highly recommend Kajabi. This course is running on Kajabi. It's, as you can see, it's great. And to be honest, the way I have this Spy for Profit course set up, I'm not even using but like 10% of their functionality. You can have discussions by lesson, and people can rate lessons, and you can interact with people with comments. And I'm not doing that for this course because I'm letting people contact me personally, and it's easy for me to manage those discussions and helping people by email. But you can do so much with Kajabi, a lot of like different social proof type things, a lot of different interactivity that you can add. And the guys at Kajabi, friends of mine, real good guys, real good marketers, they're really evolving the platform to do more and more. But you can get a Kajabi account. I think it's like $99 a month for their main account, for their classic account. And you can do tons of courses on it. And like I've literally, from a $100 a month account, a $99 a month account, I've literally done millions of dollars in sales and have served the courses from $100 a month account. So it's a great investment. It's easy. You just upload your videos, you upload PDFs or software zip files or anything that you're giving to somebody that's buying a course from you. You can time the course and drip it out in different schedules. You can do all kinds of neat scheduled things, structured things. But if you're going to do info products, especially several info products, Kajabi is a great way to go. You can do a custom header at the top with the logo of the course, give it the different look and feel, just kind of like how you see the Spy for Profit course when you log in to Kajabi to access this that you're watching now. So it's a great tool to use. Oh, and by the way, all these services I'm recommending to you, they're all just, I'm giving you the company domains. I don't make any money if you go and buy from these companies. I don't own any of these companies. I don't have an equity stake in any of these companies. I wish I did. But so there's no affiliate links. I'm just giving you my recommendations. I'm passing along to you as my student just what I recommend that you use. Of course, you can use whatever you want, but these are some of the tools that I've had personal experience with and really like. Moving on, you're going to need an analytics platform or service to track your stuff, to track your activity. Google Analytics is free. It's great. It's super powerful. But some people want different functionality than what Google Analytics provides. Mixpanel is one that's used by a lot of different marketers. Now, it's a premium product. You have to pay per month to use it. But it does some cool stuff. We're kind of visually seeing like a funnel, and you can do split testing and do other things that you can't do with Google Analytics, or at least you can't do it as easily. So look into Mixpanel. It's a very cool analytics service. Email marketing, Aweber is kind of the old established player in the market for setting up follow-up autoresponders. SendGrid is now being used more and more by big players to send out email marketing. SendGrid also now kind of plugs into Infusionsoft and some of these other shopping cart services. So SendGrid from that standpoint has a bit more, I think, portability, where if you change shopping carts, your email marketing is still seasoned, so to speak, where it's getting delivered and the database and subscriptions are being managed by SendGrid. So you could more easily move shopping cart or other infrastructure providers by just moving the API of the SendGrid account that you have to other tools. So it's something to consider. But Aweber's pretty inexpensive. It'll get the job done. It's good enough to get a business started and going and making money before you decide if you need to kind of move on to a more pro or enterprise tool like a SendGrid. Outsourcing, there are so many different options. I had once taught a course on outsourcing. We could talk for 100 hours on outsourcing. There are tons of services that you can use. Odesk.com, Guru.com, Elance.com, Freelancer.com. You can place ads in Craigslist specifically, like in the Philippines, by the different areas of the Philippines, or in India, or in Russia. Lots of different ways to find outsourcers. You could go to where people with the expertise you would like to hire hang out, like on forums. Let's say you want a specific Adobe Flash type of an application or a web-based thing programmed. Well, you could go to a Flash discussion forum and find very talented people that are experts at Flash, and they usually have a marketplace area in there where you could post that you're looking to hire an expert on Flash to create something for you. So a lot of different ways to find outsourcers, but let's keep it simple. For 90% of your needs, Odesk is good enough. I really like Odesk. They have a sense of accountability with the outsourcers. I've had really good luck finding great programmers, designers, content creators, researchers. So I recommend Odesk. It's just simple for me to give you one thing. If you don't yet have your go-to resource for outsourcing, Odesk is great. And last but not least, for SaaS hosting, if you're going to do kind of a web-based or mobile type of a service, Amazon Web Services really still is kind of the leader with auto-scalable types of infrastructure for building like a SaaS service. And Heroku is another one. It's owned by Salesforce, another enterprise-level platform where you can build kind of a tool or a service on top of it, like a subscription SaaS tool that you would sell. And both of those platforms auto-scale. So if you went and bought your own actual physical servers and put your own servers into a data center somewhere and paid the data center for the rack space per month and for the bandwidth per month that you were going to use, in most cases that's going to be a bit cheaper than Amazon Web Services or a service like Heroku. But the beauty of those services is that you can start small with very little money. You don't have to buy your own server, which you used to have to. I did this in the past. I once had like a $10,000 a month cost to where I was renting actual physical servers and I was paying, a data center. It was those were the only options 8, 10 years ago. Well, now Amazon makes it easy. It's pay as you go. It'll auto scale when you get more traffic, which is beautiful. You don't have to worry about adding more servers where you're going to have a kind of a traffic jam at your site that's going to slow things down. Heroku's the same way. These services automatically scale, so they're consistent, they're reliable, and it's almost like having a whole new division of your company managing your tech, even though it's cheap to have it scale. But anyways, you need to make decisions about what tools and services you're going to use to run your business and your projects. Make those decisions and stick with them and build out your business until you start making a bunch of money before you even consider switching things up or going with something more advanced. These tools that I have just listed for you, you don't even have to use all of them, but just the tools I've mentioned are enough for you to make $10 million a year in net income. I'm not saying that you're going to go make $10 million a year for sure, but I'm saying they're capable of supporting you making $10 million per year in profit. I'm not even talking about sales. You could be doing these could handle doing $100 million a year in sales, or at least $50 million. But you can make a lot of money with the tools I just mentioned, and that's what I'm getting at. So don't think you need to outsmart yourself and do the enterprise stuff like Salesforce and other things. You don't. The tools I just mentioned are good enough. So make some decisions, set up those accounts, and get ready to start taking action to start building these projects and going after these opportunities that you've decided to go after.